Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're taking Kobe Steel's highly technical 2011 gas metal arc welding guide and, well, transforming it into a clear, actionable roadmap for your shop. Because let's face it, mastering the arc starts long before that first spark flies.
The manual hits on a really crucial reality right away. Pulling off a perfectly smooth, defect-free weld, it comes down almost entirely to safety, precision, and proper setup. You literally can't just pick up a torch and hope for the best.
So, to make sure you're fully ready to strike an arc, we're going to follow a strict checklist. We'll cover the anatomy of the equipment, preparing the torch, gas and power setup, feeding the wire, and finally, getting ready to weld.
Section 1. Anatomy of the equipment. Mapping the GMAW system.
Let's take a wide view to orient ourselves. The blueprint traces the entire operational path. You've got your heavy-duty power source and the shielding gas cylinder. That energy and gas travel all the way through the wire feeder, straight down the conduit cable, to the welding torch in your hand. Every single one of these components has to be in perfect harmony.
During setup, we'll constantly be moving back and forth between two critical micro-locations. On the back end, there's the mechanical wire feeder where the raw material is driven into the system, and on the front end, there's the torch body itself, where the spark actually happens and the metal melts. A failure at either end? Yeah, that means a failed weld.
Section 2. Preparing the torch. Setting the stage for the wire.
The very first step when preparing the torch is confirming your contact tip. It sits right inside the gas nozzle, and you have to ensure its inner diameter perfectly matches the wire you're using. But just as importantly, it absolutely must be fastened tightly. Since this little piece of metal is what physically transfers the massive electrical current to the welding wire, a loose connection means you instantly lose your arc.
Hopping over to the wire feeder, verifying that the feed roller groove perfectly matches your wire diameter is non-negotiable. Seriously, a worn-out groove is a guaranteed way to ruin your feed. It's going to slip, slide, and completely throw off the constant speed required for a smooth weld. If it's worn, just toss it and get a new one.
Section 3. Gas and power setup. Fueling the shield and the arc.
Before you even think about touching the gas valves, check your power source control panel. Safety first, right? Make sure the main switch is off. Then, hit the line switchboard, fire up the main source, and confirm the power pilot lamp turns on. Here's a great pro tip from the manual. Actively listen. You want to hear the internal blower rotating smoothly. That sound is essentially the heartbeat of a healthy power supply.
Okay, once power is flowing, we move to the gas cylinder. The crucial point here is setting the shielding gas pressure correctly, ideally between 2 and 3 kg force per square centimeter. Shielding gas literally protects your molten weld pool from the atmosphere. If any moisture or impurities sneak in because of bad pressure or impure gas, it will absolutely cause massive welding defects, like porosity. You want your carbon dioxide or argon gas to be incredibly pure.
What's actually really interesting about the manual's data is how it breaks down required gas flow rates based entirely on how hot you're running your welding current. If you're welding somewhat delicately between 100 and 200 amps, you only need 15 to 25 liters per minute of flow. But if you're cranking it all the way up to 500 amps for heavy, thick steel, you need to bump that flow rate up to 30 liters per minute just to maintain that invisible protective shield.
Section 4. Feeding the wire, the mechanical heart of welding.
With power and gas flowing safely, we can finally introduce the metal. Now, you might think picking up a spool of wire is pretty foolproof, but never ever hold a spool by its outer edge. Deforming that plastic flange leads to the wire inserting itself between the tightly wound layers. If that happens, it causes a catastrophic jam right in the middle of a critical weld. Always lift it properly by the center hole or the heavy-duty structural parts.
To get that wire safely engaged into the machine, just follow 4 simple physical steps. First, cut the bent tip off the spooled wire. Second, physically straighten a good length of it by hand. Third, thread the needle by passing it into the wire inlet guide so it aligns perfectly with the feed roller groove. And finally, set the pressure arm down to lock the whole shebang in.
Now, setting that pressure arm down isn't just a simple click. Getting the pressure adjusting knob dialed in is incredibly high stakes. Apply too much pressure and the rollers will literally crush the wire into tiny metal flakes that clog up your entire system. Apply too little pressure and the rollers just spin and slip, giving you a jerky, unstable feed. Finding that perfect tension is kind of like an art form.
Section 5. Ready to weld. Striking the perfect arc. Let's see how this all builds up to the moment you pull the trigger.
Grab your remote controller. You'll use the inching switch to safely feed the wire all the way through the long conduit cable and out the torch. Keep holding it until exactly 20 millimeters of wire extends past the contact tube. This 20 millimeter stickout is basically the industry standard sweet spot for initiating a highly stable arc.
Before you strike, you have to dial in the Goldilocks zone for your arc voltage. If you run the voltage too low, the wire acts like a stubborn stick. It jams into the base metal, makes an awful crackling sound, and your arc jumps around irregularly. Run it too high on the other hand, and you get this excessively long flame that just blasts massive, messy spatter all over your clean metal. You've got to tweak it until the arc hums smoothly and spatter is minimal.
We're almost at the finish line. Before you drop your hood, remember these golden rules straight from the manual. Lock in your proper arc voltage for stability. Hold the torch in the proper position for pool control. Maintain stable positioning for good gas shielding. And crucially, ensure your conduit cable has absolutely no sharp ends. A twisted cable will instantly choke your wire feed, turning a perfect setup into a frustrating mess. Keep it straight.
Every perfect weld begins long before the brilliant spark flies. It starts with matching the contact tip, dialing in the gas pressure, and respecting the wire feed mechanics. Thinking back to all these micro adjustments we pulled from the manual, how will you approach your equipment setup differently the next time you walk into the shop?